Hello and good evening. Good evening to you all. I believe I'm live. Hello. Um, I don't know if anyone's there, but if anyone is there, please announce yourself. Let me know. Um, it is pouring with rain here. It is torrential. It is unbelievable. A little storm. Hello to Marianne. Welcome, Marianne. Hello, Marianne. Cheers to you. Thank you for arriving, and thank you for Keely. Yes, hello. Good evening from the drenched place that I'm in. It literally is torrential. Good evening to Chris and Enigma and Paulie and Catherine. So we won't begin anything quite yet because we've got 3 minutes to go. But I just wanted to make sure it worked because given the conditions of the weather here, nothing ever works. So here you are with a Saturday evening. I've never known weather like this. It's awful, absolutely appalling. It's so and so in the background, fast asleep. Long may that may continue. There we are. Right. What did I eat today? I went to a little restaurant by myself and had a burger, a cheeseburger by myself. So there we go. It was quite pleasant to have a meal alone. There we go. Nothing spectacular, sadly. Just there was nothing else. There was no other option because it was a little too late. French people tend to eat at 12 o'clock. I didn't get there until 3 o'clock, so sadly it wasn't possible. There we go. It's raining in Scotland, says Enigma. Well, it's torrential here. There we go. Do I like chocolate? Yes, I do love good chocolate. I love seriously good dark chocolate, but I also like, cheap chocolate, to be honest. I don't mind Toblerone, and I don't mind Cadbury's chocolate. I love a bit of Cadbury's chocolate, but it has to be fridge cold. The only condition with chocolate, it must be fridge cold. There we go. So that's my answer to that question, Marianne. There we are. Right. Did I ever have a George Foreman grill? No, I never did. Don't know. I've never even seen one, but I've heard a lot about it. Maybe you might hear about such a thing in my quiz later. Enigma likes Ferrero Rocher. Not my kind of thing, but somebody kindly gave me a box for Christmas because they thought it was funny. And my friends who consume them did actually quite like them. So, yep, many people do like that. Thorntons are good, says Paulie. Where I was born in Derbyshire, the Thorntons family lived. So, yes, I know quite a bit about Thorntons chocolates. Yep, made in Derbyshire. There we go. You like Thorntons Continental. They're your favourite. Well, that's a fair choice. If that's what you like, Keely, that's what you like. There are lots of other brands available, as they say, but if you like Thorntons, I don't know why we've suddenly got onto the topic of chocolates, but Fry's chocolate, says Beck, and Jones Stubb likes hot chocolate. There we go. Is that hot chocolate the band or hot chocolate the thing to drink? The Cadbury's cream egg. Ugh, ew. I would never eat that. Horrible thing. Awful. But each to their own, Enigma. There's an enigma to why you might like it. So there we go. Right. Good evening, says Lip Smacker. Evening from Leeds. Leeds is a lovely place. Been there many a time and think it's a fascinating place. Some people I knew had restaurants there. The Mumtaz brothers, they're rather a controversial family. They had a restaurant that was it was very pleasant, but it didn't serve alcohol, so I thought that was a bit boring. But I shan't say anything rude about them because they were very pleasant to me, but they did have a bit of a legal scandal, but that's another story for another day. So there we go. Right, there's more of you coming in. As soon as there's a few more of you, we'll start talking about some topics. But yes, Lip Smacker agrees. Delicious food, but sadly, no alcohol. Well, it's of absolutely no use as a restaurant if it doesn't serve alcohol, in my opinion. And they were very generous and invited me up there. And I went there with a very supposedly distinguished person who turned out to be a bit dodgy herself. I'm not going to go into the full story of that tonight, but there wasn't a jot of alcohol in the whole place. Absolutely appalling. You can't have a restaurant without alcohol. We are in Britain. British people want to have alcohol with their food. I'm sorry, I told them it was illogical. But there we go. It's their choice what they do, but they got into trouble for other things, so they're better off serving alcohol and following the rules, wouldn't they? Wouldn't you agree? Lip Smacker. So, right. Evening boyo, how's the ghastly wife? I don't have a wife, so there isn't a possibility of any problem with a ghastly wife because I don't have one. I don't quite understand your question, Mr. Barrister John Warosa. Right. Stevie D may fall asleep as still swollen from operation yesterday. Well, we're very sorry to hear you're suffering, Stevie D. There we go. We hope you have a speedy recovery. Speedy Stevie is what you might be called next. Amanda Roberts, good evening, and everyone. Right. Okay, good evening to you. Right. Now there's over 50 of you here. I would like to thank you all for sharing my petition. That's very kind of you, to those that you did, especially Stevie D, who began the process. But the rest of you, come on, let's be having you. Come on, please share the petition. We need to get this petition about the sloths out there. The link is there in the box, as they say on other channels. Please share the link. And please donate some money to this stupid change thing. I know it's a bit of a complicated system. I realize some people don't quite know how it works because, frankly, I think it's a totally strange system myself. You have to click all these things and then you have to verify it and then you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to share it and you have to do this and you have to do that. But, save the sloth. Come on, please join in. I would like more of you to bother to participate because I do have a list of names and some of you who are coming up here right now, you're not on the list. Very disappointing. If you want to be my audience, you better join in, please. Thank you. Right. Yes, you are correct. The certain person has fallen asleep, which is no bad thing. Quite frankly, after the recent days' behavior, no, it's not a bad thing. So there we go. Tamara Eccleston is an awful person, says Adam Forbes. Yes, I totally agree. Tamara Eccleston is a disgusting, vile, modern-day Bet Lynch. She's like a cross between a Banshee and Peggy Mitchell from EastEnders. She is ghastly, common, and spoilt, and a horrible woman. And what she did to that sloth, shame on her. Shame on her. I have my own personal row with the Ecclestons, as you all know. But seriously, the sloth thing, she highlighted an issue for me. So she was actually quite useful because I think sloths and other animals. I'm not doing anything I haven't done before with giraffes and elephants. So it's the same thing I've done before. I've done campaigns about them before. So this is not personally targeted to Mara Eccleston. So, yeah, she is the modern day Bet Lynch. Yes, because she dresses like her, and she looks a bit like her. And we've seen the photograph I shared with the Fagash Lil picture. She's not very classy, let's be honest. Bet and Peggy have more integrity than her, says Natasha. I will concede that point. Yes, well said. Well said. You win the point. I am capable of admitting I could go perhaps a little too far, but she has the same kind of loud characteristics, hence why she goes on the program called Loose Women. That's why she belongs on there with the likes of Fergie. Awful people. So, no, I'm not a fan of hers, as you all know. But the thing about the sloth is, if it hadn't been for her doing what she did to the sloth, I wouldn't know that sloths were allowed to even be allowed in the UK, other than in zoos. Obviously animals are allowed to be in zoos because zoos are allowed to be zoos. But this is not an animal that should be kept as a pet. I apologize about the snoring noise in the background. If you can hear it, I'm very sorry. Yet again, my program is going to be ruined by bad behavior, I'm sure. But I hope not that we will have any repeat of anything that is offensive. So I do apologize for previous offensive commentary that was given. But there we go. Right. Vanessa Feltz has a new show. I think she's awful. What do I think? I haven't seen Vanessa Feltz's new show, but I have met Vanessa Feltz on a number of occasions and her ex-partner. I can't remember his name. He's just awful. He's vile. He's awful. And she's just a revolting person. The pair of them belong together. They're the same standard of quality as Gloria Hunniford and Lizzie Cundy and Anthea Turner. Lowbrow and not the kind of people that you'd want at a dinner party. If you had any of that lot at your dinner party, my God, you shouldn't be having a dinner party. There we go. What do I think of Annika Rice? Annika Rice is absolutely lovely, an absolutely brilliant woman. I loved Challenge Annika as a child. I used to love watching that on a Saturday night. Fabulous program. And I've met Annika Rice on a couple of occasions. I do not know her as a friend or any sense like that. But I think she's a very positive, decent lady who did a lot of good for the world. And she does all sorts of things, and she's jolly. Annika Rice, yes, Annika Rice, national treasure. She's up there with the good people. We love a bit of Annika Rice. I don't like rice pudding, but I like Annika Rice. There we go. A rice pudding to me is the most disgusting thing I've ever eaten. Ugh, horrible. It's like slop. It's the worst thing ever. I've never had. I've had it in fancy French restaurants. I've had it in my school. I will never, ever want to eat rice pudding ever again. It's horrible. I love rice, but I don't like rice pudding. No. Right. The one-hit wonder, yes, says Jane Hennessy. That was the boyfriend of or husband or whatever he was of Vanessa Feltz. I last saw him at a party probably last September, October with his then girlfriend, but I believe they've split up. He's a very arrogant man. I don't remember what his name is even. He's not my cup of tea, put it that way. He's not somebody I would have a gin and tonic with. He's a very arrogant man. Deeply unpleasant. There we go. You met Annika Rice in Burnham Market. Have I been to Burnham Market? Yes, of course I've been to Burnham Market, Matt. I like Burnham Market. Lovely place. Absolutely fabulous place. Wonderful. A joy to visit. And in the same area, I don't know if it's in the same town, I can't remember. I like the Host Arms. I went there and had a lovely lunch there. Same area, yes. I don't know if that's in Burnham Market or the next place, but I liked it very much. It was several years ago. Right. What do I think of Fats and Small? I don't know anything about Fats and Small. I have heard of them, but I don't know anything about them. Sorry not to be able to answer your question, Nicola, but I don't know a single thing about them. What is wrong with Des Dog? Who is Des Dog? I don't know who Des Dog is. There we go. Right. He seems like a nice fella. I don't know who Des Dog is. Very sorry. I'm a little confused at your personal interactions on the subject of someone called Des Dog. As far as I'm aware, I don't know. Have I missed the point? I'm going to have a little bit more wine because that would be fine. And it's absolutely bucketing down here. He's one of our viewers. What did Des Dog? What is wrong with Des Dog now? I have no idea what Des Dog has done. Right. Des Dog is the man. LOL. He's one of the viewers. I've utterly no idea. Thank you for your comments, but I can't really comment on something I utterly no idea about. Is he friends with Snoop Dogg? Well, he could be. He wasn't happy with the moderator. Well, the moderator, I don't know. I don't really. The moderator, I think the one you're particularly talking about, does whatever she wishes, and that's whatever she wishes. And she's a very nice lady, and I don't mind. She seems to be a very helpful person, and she's trying to be helpful to me. So I'm not going to criticize her, but there we go. He won't be coming back. Oh, well, I don't know. It really doesn't bother me. I don't know. Why are we even talking about this? It's utterly boring. I don't want to talk about stupid irrelevances. Absolutely pointless. There we go. Have I met the man who's called Zeus in the south of France? Nope. I've not met Zeus. No. Did I go to a private school? No. I went to a grammar school. I'm very proud to have gone to the Lancaster Royal Grammar School. A wonderful school, very academic, very sporting, but I wasn't very sporting. Yeah, I could have gone to all sorts of schools, but I went to that school because, my mother's very academic, and that's where she encouraged me to go to school. So that's where I went to school. There we go. Did the cheeky girls go to the Steeple Times launch party? Matt Grant, no, I'm not quite in the league of Eddie Jordan, who had Katie Price at his parties. But I did know a friend of mine worked for Lembit Opik, who of course dated a cheeky girl. So that's my only connection with the cheeky girls. I've never met a cheeky girl. I've never met the cheeky girl's mother, who I believe is very tough, and she controls them with a rod of iron. I don't know what became of the cheeky girls or where they are now, but they're probably still being a bit cheeky, but, they're probably a bit worn out by now. They've probably been a bit too cheeky by now. There we go. A bit like Jordan, who is looking like the back end of a bus every day. more and more. So, what's the first topic? Well, we'll come to a first topic shortly when there's a few more people. But right, the latest topic. Yes, well, Pete Burns. I don't know much about Pete Burns. I've seen a picture of Pete Burns or some kind of footage or something, but I don't know anything about Pete Burns. I cannot comment on Pete Burns. So that's an impossibility. Not going to be covering Pete Burns, particularly myself. Right. Did you foresee the Brexit before the referendum, or did you think we would remain? I, was obviously very anti-Brexit. You know, myself and Gina Miller and all the things that went on as a result. But I did think David Cameron should have had the good sense not to have bothered having a stupid referendum, because all it has done is cause division. And it makes people's lives hard. It's made everything worse. It's a total disaster for farmers. It's a total disaster for people who live in countries like this, France, who are British, and Spain and wherever else, Italy. It's a total bloody disaster. So I didn't foresee it. No. I could understand the reasons that people were angry with the European Union. And the European Union is a defunct or terrible organization. But Britain should have led the reform of the EU rather than walking away from it. We should have taken charge. The Brits have always led the way under Winston Churchill, under Margaret Thatcher. We shouldn't have been cowardly custards, and we should have manned up and grown up and showed up and taken over, not walked away, not let all these other people take charge of us. Because look what it's done to us. It's made life harder. So what idiots are we? We sent ourselves backwards. You know, do we want to be a third-rate country? We should be a first-rate country. That's how I feel. I think Britain should be a first-rate country, not a third-rate country. And Brexit has made us third-rate. It has taken us into the lower tier. It is embarrassing. It is stupid. And it is wrong. It was a disaster area. Right. Would I fight in Ukraine if I was conscripted? I don't see the point of fighting in Ukraine. I think Ukraine needs to go make peace with Russia. I believe peace is what we need next. I don't think that Donald Trump is wrong. We need peace in that region. I really don't like Zelensky. I never have. I've always called him out, but it's time for peace. Look, Putin is an evil bastard, but there needs to be peace. We cannot go on with wasteful wars because people are dying. It's too much. It's time to make peace. And the Zelensky man is a showman, and he thinks that he can make a show of things. And I know that I will not be popular for saying this, but I think that it is time that the peace was made between Ukraine and Russia. It is not necessary to carry on this war. It is very different to the war in Gaza and Israel, because the people, the Palestinians and the Israelis, you know, that's a thing that you'll never solve. It's like Afghanistan. You cannot solve those kind of problems. But Russia and Ukraine is a solvable problem. There needs to be a negotiated peace. Put a stop to this nonsense and this showman who turns up in his stupid bloody clothes. Enough is enough. I don't need to hear any more about him from him. He is irritating and I don't trust him. But I am sorry to say there's a lot of people making a lot of money from this war, as Linz is pointing out. And there are a lot of people who are going to make a lot of money. Just like Cameron walked away from Brexit, he was another coward. The people who create the chaos never have to deal with the consequences. Consequences should be paid for. If you create a problem, you should pay for it. That is how it should work. The cost of this war is too awful, as Amanda Roberts says. The cost is too high. Nicola says, I was never a Zelensky fan. I totally agree with you. Matt Grant contradicts and says, I respect Zelensky. Well, you're entitled to do that, but I don't respect Zelensky. Zelensky is not my kind of person. I think the man is not to be trusted, and John Miller is right. Peace is the way. That is what we need. Yes. The world should be together, says Stevie D. Well, that's a very idealistic view, and I would like to agree with you, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. One life lost in a war is one life too much, says Jane. Well, totally agree with you, but sadly, war is a deadly thing and people die. So no, the war in Ukraine is a terrible thing. And I do believe it is time that Zelensky agreed to what is proposed to him, and Putin agreed what is proposed to him. But Putin is a psychopath, and that is a problem. And I will agree that that is a problem, because you can't really negotiate with a psychopath. The man is a manipulator, and he's playing Donald Trump without a doubt. Donald Trump thinks he's Mr. Clever. Mr. Putin is Mr. Evil. So, when you take on Dr. Evil and you're not that, all you care about is the show, because all Donald Trump cares about is, making things look right in his way of his marketing nonsense, then you end up the way you do. So, no. Putin has the devil's eyes. Yes, I totally agree. He is a very, very nasty man. He's an evil, evil bastard. He's of Saddam Hussein quality. He is vile. He's a wicked bastard. He's a scumbag, and he has no moral compass. But this Zelensky is just another showman who thinks that he can pull off something. And I bet your bottom dollar that Zelensky has a ton of money in a Swiss private bank ready for his escape when he needs to leave or wherever he wants to go, because he can't go to Russia, obviously. So he's more likely to go to Switzerland or wherever he can go, Argentina. He'll be on his private jet out of there, and the people of that country will suffer an even worse fate. So what about the poor people of Ukraine? Yes, I feel sorry for the people of Ukraine, but I do not like Zelensky. No. Bad, bad man. They're both bad. They're awful. They're all bad. All of them. Terrible. Who will replace Putin? Asks Enigma. Another nutter. Totally agree. There will be another freak. Look at Yeltsin. He was a complete lunatic. Awful. The Tate brothers, we'll be coming to them. We're coming to those shortly. We're nearly at half an hour, and there's quite a few of you here. So we're going to start our topics at half an hour. So there we go. Would I legalize drugs in the UK like Portugal? I would legalize all drugs, yes. And then I'd tax the hell out of them. Get rid of the drug dealer. If there's a high tax on them and they're available via a pharmacy, then you don't get the bad drugs that are all mixed up, and people can only have a certain amount of it, and the government makes money. Wonderful. Tax the hell out of it. Bring it on. Right. Good evening to you in Liverpool, Marie Page. Hello. Thank you for coming in. And now it's at 30 minutes. We'll start talking about some topics. So, right, we'll go to our first topic. Our first topic of the day, well, I was very shocked. The pricing of food and drink in the House of Commons, which, of course, the members of the public cannot buy food and drink in the House of Commons. I know this because I've been there many, many times for lunch with MPs and lords and all the rest of it. Only they can pay. Only they can pay. Whether they actually pay, God only knows. But the pricing is special for them because they're members of Parliament, the Lords and the Commons. So they get special pricing for food. They get subsidized pricing on top of the fact they get paid a salary. In the case of MPs, they get a salary. And in the case of the Lords, they get a daily rate of about 350, 370, whatever it is a day, just for turning up. Each time they turn up, they get a daily rate. Disgusting. Why should these people be given subsidized food prices on top of all this freebies that they already get? The MPs get all the expenses. They can even claim for their gas bill. Why should an MP be able to pay for their gas bill on a member of the public? That's disgusting. An absolute disgrace. And some of them claim for two houses. Since the expenses scandal, which my friend David Henk of The Guardian, he was a Telegraph journalist as well, and he won an award for his expose on the expenses scandal. He did the best investigation ever. Some of them claim for a duck house. Why does anyone need a duck house? That is not an expensible claim, but yes, that's what they were allowed to do. They claimed for their sofas. They claimed for their iPads. They claimed for their, 60-inch TV. It was a bit like Bruce Forsyth's Generation Game. It was a bit like the conveyor belt. You could claim for your toaster. You could claim for your this. You could claim anything you needed for your second home. You claimed for it. You might have needed a speedboat, so you could have claimed for that. A bit like Bullseye. You could have claimed for your kettle. You could have claimed for a pack of cards. Anything was claimable. And this is what is so wrong about British politics. We should pay politicians more money. Pay them more. That is what I say. Pay a politician a better salary. Let's get a better class of person into politics. In America, politicians do not behave like this with their grabbing of little expenses and scrubbing and scrounging and taking flights like this Lindsay Hoyle, the speaker, £180,000 on flights in 2 years for the Speaker of the House of Commons. He had to travel first class because, he wouldn't have been able to perform his duties when he got there. £180,000. There are people homeless on the streets of Britain. And this scoundrel Labour MP, and he's a Labour MP, is getting flown around the world first class. Why does he need to be flown first class? Put him in economy like everybody else. Shame on him. Lindsay Hoyle, you're a piece of filth. You're a piece of scum. You're a piece of detritus. You make me sick. disgusting. £180,000. And your portrait, they painted a portrait of this Lindsay Hoyle. £36,000 to paint a portrait of this moron who's flown around the world. Why does anyone need to see a portrait of this Burke? Lock him up. Shame on him. You're a disgrace, Lindsay Hoyle. You're not even a very good speaker. You're dull. There were wonderful speakers like Bernard Weverell, whose clothes I'm wearing right now. There we go. The family's clothes. But honestly, this is an outrage. So, no farmers, no food, which is a wonderful thing. You must follow it on Twitter. Please follow. I went on the farmers' protest in November. I put my money where my mouth is. I turn up to protests. I'm not like everybody else who just says I'll support something. I do actually do it. And I want you all to support my sloth petition. So I want more of you to support the sloth. Save the sloth. Come on, put your money where your mouth is. Join in. And I want more of you to give some money to help support it. So I want more of that. I get nothing out of it. It's nothing to do with me. I want you to help me get Keir Starmer to ban the mistreatment of sloths in the British Isles. So come on, get on with it. Anyway, no farmers, no food. Wonderful campaign. Follow it on Twitter. House of Commons subsidised drinks for MPs, paid by the taxpayer and made by the farmers. Markedly cheaper than what everyone else has to pay. One price for us, another price for them. So, a pint of beer, how much do you think it costs in central London? The average price is £6.75. What do you think the MPs pay? Come on, I want to guess. This is not my quiz, but I want to guess. I'm going to do a few of these with you now. Right. What do you think the MPs pay for a pint of beer? The average price is £6.75. Jane Hennessy says £3. Enigma says £1. You're all coming in very low. They pay £3.30. So why should they pay half price? Why? It's not fair. Not correct. They are getting a salary and they get expenses. So why can't they pay the same price as anyone else? Why does the British public have to subsidize their drinking habits? Why should we subsidize politicians' drinking habits? So 125 milliliter glass of Pinot Grigio, the average price is around about £7.50. What do you think they pay? What do you think they pay? Yeah, why can't they get a Tesco meal deal? You think £1, £3.50, £3.50, £3.75? No, they pay the grand old price of £2.75. And if you go there as a guest, which I do occasionally, of an MP, you're not allowed to pay yourself. They have to pay. There's obviously some weird thing going on there. I have noticed that because, I can't use my card and pay for the drink. They have to pay. Right. What do you think they pay for a Bombay Sapphire and tonic? Given it's around about £12 in a pub. I'm including the tonic in the price. You're pretty close to the Blue Nomad. It is £4.60. You said £4.50. It's £4.60. They get away with very nice prices. It's no wonder they get drunk in these bars and assault people. a number of assaults and things that have gone on. There is more cocaine in the House of Commons than you could possibly imagine. There have been more assault allegations than you could possibly imagine in that place. This is because these people are out of control. They should not be allowed to continue with this. How much do you think a Pim's cocktail costs? As they call it. They call it a Pim's cocktail. Most people would just call it Pim's. But, that's probably going to cost you around about 10 or something pounds in a pub. What do you think a Pim's cocktail, as they call it, would cost? You think £4? No, you're above. It's the Blue Nomad is close. It's £3.75. It's not £3.55, but you're close. And finally, on the drink front, what do you think they charge for a glass of champagne? Champagne is not even made in the UK, so why are they serving champagne? Shouldn't they serve British goods? Given all this nonsense about that. Right. Well, anyway, they want to serve champagne, so they do. Right. It's not Wetherspoons, but there we go. How much do you think they charge for a glass of champagne? A glass of champagne is normally about £15 anywhere. So what would you charge in there for a glass of champagne? It's certainly not £6. They get it for £8.75. Why do we actually need a government? Asks Amanda Roberts. What do they actually do for the people? Fuck all. I agree with you, Amanda Roberts, about this particular government and the last government also. Dreadful. Sunak and Starmer are two of the worst prime ministers this country has ever had. How much was it for a fine single malt? I haven't got the figures in front of me. I can't answer your question, but go on Twitter and you can see my Twitter feed. I did retweet all these prices, so have a look there. At M_steeples. Have a look there. You'll see the entire price list. But shame on these filthy pigs. They are greedy, filthy pigs. Let the public in. Why can't the public go and use this bar and, pay the same prices? Why can't we all go in there and pay these prices? Take away these people's subsidies. Take away their expenses and pay MPs properly. I would double the pay of MPs and I would get rid of half of them. I think we should have 400 MPs in this country, not 800. It's ridiculous to have so many MPs. Nobody contacts their MP other than people like me who bombards them with letters complaining about sloths and whatever else that I want to complain about, or my driving license. Most people don't ever contact an MP. I do, but I'm a weirdo. So I'll admit that I'm a bloody pest. But that's because I know how democracy works, and I don't like the way that, these people get away with doing nothing. They should be made to deal with constituents, and they should face their constituents. But why should they have subsidized food on top of everything else? All these things they're claiming for. If we halved the number of MPs, paid them better, so we double the salaries to 400 that remain, and we take away their expenses. If they live in the, Stornoway, they have to stay in a hotel that is owned by the government. Let's have that. Then it doesn't cost anything. They don't need second homes. These people shouldn't be allowed second homes. We should not be paying for their sofas, their heating bills, any of this rubbish. They should be treated like a normal worker. And it's very easy to change the system. The system is not getting good quality people. This is why we get the rubbish that we get. Look at the one who's caused the by-election. He went around beating someone up. He wasn't a good quality person, was he? And no wonder there's a by-election coming up. Absolutely disgusting. In Parliament, how much do you think they pay for a bowl of soup? In a restaurant, you probably pay £10 for a bowl of soup. £8, £10. How much do you think they pay? 50p, £1. No, they pay £2.71. But it's still incredibly cheap. How much do you think they pay for steak and chips, given steak and chips in a restaurant is normally about £30? How much do you think they pay? £10. Well, you're pretty close, Jane. It's £9.19. So they are paying £20 less than anyone else pays. Curious that, isn't it? Fish and chips. Fish and chips in a restaurant, normally about 20 quid, 18, 20 quid. They pay £7.33. Disgusting. This is an absolute outrage. Let the public in. Why can't we go and have the same thing? If we want to book a table and we book the table before them, why can't we have the table? We pay for them. We are the taxpayer. Let us have the table. These restaurants that operate for them, if we ring up first, why can't we have the table? Should be first come, first served, shouldn't it? Like any other restaurant. The taxpayer should be the priority, not them. I think that would be actually a way to teach those bastards a lesson. But, of course, that will never happen. I realize the security considerations and all the rest of it. But why can't we have access to what they have? They don't have to pay for anything. They are scammers and scoundrels, and they're filthy, and they buy duck houses, and they buy sofas, and some of them were buying porn films. Disgusting people. Absolutely vile. Yeah. There we go. So, can they still smoke in their bars? No, they're not allowed to smoke in the House of. They're not allowed to smoke in there. No. In France, they all smoke in the bars, but no, you're not allowed to smoke in the House of Commons because, well, they've had enough problems with fires in there, haven't they? Parliamentary parks are out of control. I totally agree. Yes. They are dreadful. They're all into kink. Yes, well, they're all into cocaine as well. There's more cocaine in that building than anything else. What they should do also, which is what a friend of mine does in his bars in Chelsea and London, they should go around the building spraying WD-40 because that'll destroy all their cocaine. And that woman that likes to go to Ibiza, I don't know what. I'm not going to suggest she's into it, but because she might sue me. But she's particularly a kind of an example of the kind of person we're referring to that needs to be dealt with. There we go. Yes. Kink and coke. Yes, coke. Yes, they do love a bit of coke in that place, and they do love a bit of sexual action of all forms. They are degenerates. And this is why we should pay politicians more. Because if we paid them more, we'd get better people. The people we've got, we've had Nadine Dorries, we've had Boris Johnson, we've had Angela Rayner, we've had Rachel Reeves, the Queen of Thieves, Keir Starmer, the Farmer Harmer. These are disgusting people. What's quality about any of them? Nicola Sturgeon. Okay, she's not in the Houses of Parliament, but she never was. But she's another fine example in a different parliament. But what? Nigel Farage as in garage, far rage. Richard Tice, Richard unenticing, awful, awful people. There is no quality in any political party at the moment in Britain. Ed Davey, who, just plays the fool. He's like the court jester. He's a joker. And then you've got, half-wits like Diane Abbott, who wears two left shoes. She's a total twit. She's a moron. She apologized for drinking a mojito. What a boring woman. Absolutely tedious. We need some politicians of gravitas, of the standards of Margaret Thatcher and the people like her from the past, decent people who actually stood for something and did it with dignity. Now, you might not like Margaret, but there we go. Margaret was a wonderful lady, and she did good for this country. There are plenty of people of other political persuasions who've done good for the country, but I cannot comment on many of the historical figures because I never knew them, but I did know her, and she was fantastic. She was simply the best. We need more Margarets and we need less Keers. It is time to send Keir out to pasture. His family, he bought a piece of land so his family could keep some donkeys. Well, he should be put out to pasture where the donkeys went, shouldn't he, too? He is as much use as a chocolate teapot. And I'm not being anything other than honest. I thought that Keir Starmer would be, like a reasonable successor to Blair. Tony Blair was a fabulous Prime Minister, in my view, in many ways. Tony Blair, my life was wonderful when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. I did not have a bad time. He did not make my life miserable. Everybody was successful. Then came Gordon Brown and he sold all the gold. He was a total twit. But Blair was the natural successor to Margaret. And okay, I know people don't like his war, but Tony Blair ran the country very well. Like it or not, he was not a bad leader in economic terms. Ken Clarke was the best chancellor we've ever had, and I worked for Ken Clarke, and I worked on Ken Clarke's leadership campaign. And Ken Clarke, if he had been Prime Minister, would have been the best Prime Minister we ever had, in my view, following Margaret. Ken is a wonderful, wonderful man, and I enjoyed working with him. We don't need, the Conservative Party has gone down and down. I want to find a political party I can support. I want to get back into politics because I want to stop the rot, because the rot is so bad. It's got worse and worse in the last few weeks. And I agree with this Trump for once. We need change in the world. I don't like Trump, but I want our country to change. And I cannot support Kemi Badenoch. She is bad. The name says it all. Kemi Badenoch. She is not suitable to be leader of the Conservative Party. She is not an heir to Margaret Thatcher. She is a total drip. She's the Prince Harry of politics. She is so boring and pathetic and weak and drippy and drivelly and whingy and whiny. We don't need that. We need reform in the UK, but we don't need the Reform Party. I don't want anything to do with them. They are right-wing fascists, and they're disgusting, and they make me sick. Far Rage is a far-right, awful man involved with the horrible, unenticing Richard Tice. What they've done to that man, Rupert Lowe, don't particularly agree with any of his views either. You know, how could you run a party if you can't even keep 5 of you together? You're never going to get government, are you? You're a bunch of Burkes. You're a bunch of pillocks. You're worse than you're worse than a swivel-eyed bunch of lunatics. That's what you are. That's exactly where you belong. You're mad. So no, I don't want anything to do with that. But I do think that Britain needs people to stand up and finally put their money where their mouth is. I don't want to be Prime Minister. No. Linz, you get me completely wrong. I would like to be involved in politics, but I do not want to be a Prime Minister. Certainly not, never. That's not my desire. I would like Victoria Atkins to be Prime Minister. I love Victoria. She's a nice friend of mine from childhood. She was Health Minister. She should be the leader of the Conservative Party. Someone like her. Someone with some sense. Kemi Badenoch is just ghastly. Awful. She's not suitable to be leader of the Conservative Party. And that is not a racist thing that I'm saying. I am one of my closest friends, Peter Ozzy Tutu. His father's the King of Ghana, head of the Ashanti tribe. I have, friends who are Indian. I have friends who are from all walks of life. I shared a room at university with the finance minister of China's son because I was forced to share a room for a few weeks. I hated that. I have friends from all over the world. I'm not racist, but Kemi Badenoch is not fit to be leader of the Conservative Party. It's nothing to do with her colour. Kemi Badenoch is just bad. She's rubbish. She's ineffectual. The Conservative Party was a great political party, and I joined the Conservative Party when I was 7, 8 years old, 10, whatever I was. I was so involved in politics. I was kidnapped as a child because I was sent off delivering leaflets by a madwoman. And that's a story for another day, which I don't really want to go into. But I lost my bicycle because I was kept in a house by a woman because I couldn't find the letterbox. That's how involved I was in politics. I was so enthusiastic in politics when I was a child because Margaret was such a wonderful, wonderful Prime Minister. And nothing will take that away. But I want the Conservative Party to go back to being wonderful, as it belongs. It was destroyed by John Major. It was destroyed by David Cameron. He was one of the worst because of his stupid Brexit. But it was destroyed by Ian Duncan Smith, an absolutely filthy piece of rubbish he was, and his horrible wife, Betsy. I can't stand the pair of them. They are the worst of the worst, awful people. Michael Howard, an absolute gentleman. Michael Howard tried to bring in some order. I worked on William Hague's campaign, and I worked on Ken Clarke's campaign personally. So they're the only two campaigns I was involved in subsequently. And since that, I've never been involved in the Conservative Party. I would never have supported Theresa May. No. And Boris Johnson, absolutely the pits. And he still thinks he can make some more money out of it. courtesy of his mate, Lord Bamford, who still owes 500 million to the British taxpayer. Yeah, Lord Bamford. Come on, Bamford, pay up. You are as bad as Michelle Mone. You owe 500 million to the British taxpayer, so you should pay up as well. Shame on you. You're a disgrace. Absolutely appalling, Lord Bamford. You know, I do go to your Dalesford Cafe, so please ban me if you so wish. But there we are. Right. Did I know about Edwina and John? I know a lot about Edwina and John, yes, because my friend Susie Curry is the daughter of Edwina Curry. Susie only found out that her mother had an affair with John Major on the morning that the book came out, because Susie lived in her mother's former parliamentary flat in Victoria, Westminster borders, somewhere on Victoria Street area. And she was woken up by journalists pressing the doorbell, and they said, "What do you think about your mother's relationship with John Major?" And she said she didn't know. So, her own mother didn't have the courtesy to tell us. So that does say rather a lot about Edwina Curry. And what Edwina Curry did in many other areas, I don't like Edwina Curry. And my friend Christine Hamilton really doesn't like Edwina Curry. I'm with Christina on this one. Edwina Curry, no, not a nice person. But Susie, I haven't spoken to her in many, many years. She used to work at McKinsey. She's a very nice lady, and I'm very sorry that her own mother treated her in that way. I think it's a terrible thing that she did. Have I ever met Boris? Yes, of course I met Boris. Boris worked on the campaign with Ken Clark when he wanted to be leader, and he was against Ian Duncan Smith. And he used to turn up and he never did any work. He's a lazy fucking bastard. He's a piece of shit. He's disgusting. He's the worst prime minister this country's ever had. He's disgraceful. I hate Boris with a passion. I cannot stand Boris Johnson. I think what he did to this country during these lockdowns, his behavior, he is the sickest fucking bastard on the planet. And he's made a fucking fortune out of all of us. Shame on him. I think Boris Johnson should be thrown in a blender at high speed. I can't stand the man. He makes me angry. He is disgusting. He's filth. He's scum. He is the worst of the worst, and he brings shame on this country. He is one of the worst prime ministers we've ever had. Awful. Right, there you go. Right. Did I ever meet Margaret Thatcher? Of course I did, many times. Margaret Thatcher was a very dear family friend. We loved Margaret, and Margaret was wonderful. And I loved and adored Margaret, and I still do. So I occasionally go and visit her grave, and I sit there and take a bit of time for a bit of reflection. She's buried at the Royal Hospital in Chelsea, and as is Dennis, and their ashes are both there, and there's a bench, and I go and sit there sometimes because they were very dear to me, both of them, and they both inspired me. Dennis was fabulous too. Dennis was a wonderful man and great company. And Carol, the daughter, is a lovely lady. Carol is fabulous and a lovely lady, and I'm glad she got happy. She's happily married, and she's having a good life. And I say cheers to her. There are good people in the world, and Margaret Thatcher is one of the best of the best. I was very lucky to spend time with such a historic figure as her, because not many people get that privilege. I spent, I remember on Sunday lunch with them. I went on the countryside march with them, and we had lunch, and you know, it was wonderful to spend time with such people. Many other times, and I once took Dennis home on the Underground to Chester Square, so because that's the way he wanted to go. Great people, fabulous. You cannot beat the dedication to service that they gave. Starmer, meanwhile, just gets people to pay for his glasses and his wife's knickers. Absolutely shameful. This man, Starmer, is a farmer harmer. He's appalling. And Rachel Reeves goes raving in Ibiza. These people have no realization of the significance of service. If you're in high office, you should be giving service to the servitude to the nation. They don't give a damn. Margaret, the IRA bombed her. She got up the next morning. She went back to work. What have these people been through? They go out raving and they have a headache probably, and they don't come out to work. Disgusting. Margaret was a proper servant of the public that elected her to serve, and she respected her public, and she did so with dignity. What is raving Rainer doing, dancing around in a bloody nightclub? Absolutely sickening by contrast. Margaret survived being bombed, and she got up in the morning and she said, I will carry on. I don't think I'm speaking anything other than sense here. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. You think it's a rant? Oh, yes. Okay. I'm ranting. Okay. Well, there we go. I do think that a leader who has been bombed by the IRA, and I won't talk about my own personal knowledge of the IRA, but today I'll save that for another day. But, having been through such a thing, the IRA didn't stop Margaret. Margaret was a lady of courage. What is raving Rainer? She's just a ridiculous joke who goes around dancing with some bit part TV actress in a bar in Ibiza. Shame on her. John Miller is someone who speaks an interesting point. Thank you, John. You weren't ever a fan of Margaret Thatcher, but I can't disagree with you. Precisely. Did I ever meet Simon Mann? Yes, of course. I know Simon Mann very well. Simon Mann is another courageous gentleman and, father of many children. And a friend of mine used to date him. And I was last with him at a party in Beecham Place many years ago. I can't remember what it was for, but, he did try and run a coup with Mark Thatcher, and he went to jail and in Africa, and he was very badly treated in Africa. And, he took the punishment, but he was a mercenary. So, and then he got a presidential pardon, and, he's a tough guy. He's a good man. I like him. Okay, what he did was, money motivated. I'm not saying, he would have made a fortune if he'd been successful, and so would have all the others like Mark Thatcher, who were also involved. I don't particularly like Mr. Mark Thatcher, but there we go. But I'm not going to go there. Last time I saw him was my friend Philip Lawless's funeral, and he was there. But, there we go. Have I ever met Simon Weston? I haven't met Simon Weston, but I know many people who know him. What an amazing man. The Falklands war hero. Absolutely fabulous man. What he did with, his poor face, and he He has done so much good for other people. Simon Weston should be saluted as a hero. He ought to be made a lord or at least sir for what he's done. He's campaigning for other people. What an amazing man. I don't believe he's been given anything other than an OBE, but maybe I'm wrong. I could be incorrect. But he should be awarded a higher title. Simon Weston is an amazing, amazing person because he shows that never give in. Whatever happens to you, don't give in. Today I read a story about a lady who wanted to kill herself because she was depressed and she was a lesbian, and she shared all these pictures, and it's not. This is actually ridiculous in the context of Simon, but Mr. Weston. But this lady said she thanked everybody for encouraging her not to give in, because she tried to kill herself a year ago because people were so horrible to her and she was depressed, and that she'd finally admitted that she was a lesbian, and so what. And I thought, well, good for you. You have actually accepted who you are and you're happy. So good for you. And she shared all these pictures. And I wrote to her and I said, well done you. I think that is, you've got to be whoever you've got to be. And this man, his face was destroyed by the damage of what happened to him, but he carried on. And, he could have given in, and he could have said, I don't want to live anymore and I'm going to kill myself. And she could have given in, and she was depressed because she couldn't accept her problems because she had all sorts of mental problems. And look, they both got over it and they both carried on in life. Well done them. So I'm not attacking everybody who's different here. I'm saying there are different examples. Yes, his face was ravished, but his soul is good, says Amanda. I agree with you, Amanda. Well done. Well done. He was a great ambassador for Wales. There we are. Right. I don't know what he did for Wales, but there we are. Be yourself. Precisely, Hatchy. Precisely. Everybody should be themselves. Right. Right. Anyway, so yes, we've dealt with the filthy politicians. So who's worse, Hannah Ingram Moore or Cilla Black? Right. Well, I didn't like Cilla Black as a person, but Hannah Ingram Moore is a grifter and a grabber. And I'll come to Hannah Ingram Moore right now. So, right. We will move on to the topic of Hannah Ingram Moore, Matt Grant. Thank you. It's a little bit hard for me to do this. Right. But Hannah is not a nice lady, no. So, Cilla's secrets died with her. Yes. Cilla Black. Okay. Before we begin on Hannah, I'll deal with Cilla then. Yes. Cilla Black was not a pleasant woman. I've spent many an evening with Cilla Black, and I did not like the woman. I thought she was a very strange woman. She is an apologist for the vile Cliff Richard. She's associated with all sorts of people. When Rolf Harris was convicted of being a paedophile, she expressed anger in his favor, which was not a very nice thing to do. She is not a very pleasant woman, and I don't like Cilla Black, I have to say. Cilla Black has to be one of the most unpleasant people I've ever met, and something does not add up about her. And, why was her grave defaced in Liverpool? Because people in Liverpool really didn't like her. She was considered a very deeply unpleasant woman. I think, you have to look at surprise, surprise. There was nothing good about her. The only surprise about her was anybody who thought she was nice, in my view. Anyway, I don't need to speak any more about Scylla this evening. I think that's enough on old Scylla. But Hannah, horrible Hannah, Mrs. Ingram Moore, the daughter of Captain Tom, her book has only sold between 1 and 2 copies a day since it was launched. She's now 156,000th on Amazon charts. And her shameless money grab with the book called Grief, Public Face, Private Loss, which is underlined, a compassionate guide to ease loneliness, address the fear of lost memories, navigate emotions, and honor loved ones with insights from my personal journey, is really been a flop. Well, the £8.99 a book has been criticised as just another excuse to make money. Just avoid, people say, and give your money instead to a charity that deserves it. And, Sir Tom, her relative, raised 38 million for NHS charities, yet what did she do? It is ridiculous. Yes, you can hear a certain person making noise in the background. I will not be having any racist interruptions on the program tonight. I promise you of that, because I really will just close the whole thing down. It's not acceptable and it's completely wrong. So there we go. I do apologize in advance if there is any interruption to this show, because this show is what matters to me, and I'm not going to have my show taken down by anybody. Nobody is going to ruin my program. That is that. There we go. So I don't know what on earth has gone on here, but why there is noise. I do apologize for the noise. Yes, so Mrs. Ingram Moore has conned the Charity Commission. She pocketed £1.5 million as a publishing advance for Captain Tom's Tomorrow Will Be a Good Day in 2021. But she left nothing for the charity. They got £18,000, i.e. £1 a copy, to the charity from future sales of the book. It's completely unacceptable what went on. It's totally disgraceful. There was the planning row over the spa complex. The spa was demolished in 2023, utterly appalling and disgraceful. The public have been misled over Captain Tom and the Captain Tom Foundation, and the couple were accused of serious and repeated instances of misconduct, mismanagement, and failures of integrity. She's been shamed by Judge Rinder this month. What do you think about this woman's latest load of rubbish? What do you think of it? Please, audience, please tell me. Do you think that Hannah Ingram Moore has behaved with integrity and decency, or is she a complete shit show, a piece of rubbish, a piece of junk? She should be thrown in a barn. She is, in my view, an absolute appalling piece of toe rag, and I think she should be locked up, and I think there should be prosecution of, well, I think there should be a prosecution of her for a start. She has taken £1.5 million of other people's money, and that is not correct. Well, the publishing house, it's their stupid fault, I suppose. You can't. She didn't take that off the public. She took that off a publishing house. So shame on her. She is absolutely abhorrent, says Jane Hennessy. Trevor says grifters. Honeypot says shocked but not surprised. Daniel Wildgoose says she will end up on a reality TV show once she's milked her father's legacy dry. All right, so you have various views. She's dined out on the goodness of her father, says Miss Marple. I don't think the father was a bad man. No, the father was not a bad man. But he didn't really control his daughter, did he? So says something about him, doesn't it? Right. There we go. Stevie D will keep the scores on the quiz tonight because he doesn't want to join in the questions. Okay, thank you, Stevie D, but we're not quite up to that yet. We are not quite ready for that yet. Imagine reaching that age and they will take you to see Cliff. Can you imagine how dreadful those people were? Those filthy people. At least they didn't take them to see Cilla Black as well. She also used to hang around with Cliffy. Her and Cliff together. That would have been even worse. But they got a free flight to Barbados. So they took the old man on an aeroplane. Poor old man. And they got him coronavirus and killed him. Can you imagine what a nasty thing to do? And they made him endure being sung to by Cliff Richard before he died. Ugh. How could you have the worst thing on the life than Cliff Richard singing to you? What a disgusting, disgusting set of people. Did I ever meet Dale Winton? Okay, well, before we move on to the next topic, no, I never met Dale Winton. Right, have I met Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry? Yes, I have spent a weekend with Stephen Fry. He is one of the most awful people also. Can't stand him. Pompous weirdo. All he ever talks about is himself. Ghastly, vile. Not my kind of person. Was Russ Abbott there? I don't think so. You've had no contact from Michael Barrymore? No, I haven't had any Michael Barrymore. We won't come to him. Have I met Christopher Biggins? Only on one occasion. Another ghastly person who was in the Daily Mail today moaning that he deserves the title and why shouldn't he have a title because he's raised lots of money for charity. He is awful. He is such a pompous pain in the arse, awful man. Ghastly. Can't stand him. Did I ever meet Paul O'Grady? No, never met him. Sorry, don't know. I know who he is, but I'd never met him. And obviously he's no longer around, but I believe he was quite a nice gentleman. Yeah, he ought to be called Dame Biggins. Yep. He ought to be called Lady Biggins, I suppose. Probably better. Right. So we'll go on to my next topic. Right. We've dealt with the horrible Hannah. The Tate brothers. Yes, the horrible Tate brothers are back in Romania. Nasty little Tates have flown into Romania. I want to know who is paying for them. You know, they've got a hearing on the 24th of March in Romania. They have bothered to turn up, which I'm quite surprised. I thought they'd just stay in America. Nasty old Tates. Right. Sebastian, you're wrong. They're not in the USA. They have left the USA and they have gone to Romania on a private jet. Tate and Vile. Yeah, but that's a good nickname for them. I want to know, how are they getting away with their antics? Yes, Lynn says someone is funding them. I totally agree. There we go. They are now suing various ex-users, Twitter or whatever you want to call it, including Crayon Murders, for $50,000 for defamation. He says, game on. What a snowflake. And they are, Andrew Tate is a victim of the Matrix, because that's what he keeps going on about. He's a victim of the Matrix. They're all about freedom of speech, but they can't stand it when someone says something they don't like. And why do they always go around with no clothes on? Why don't they wear shirts? Very strange behavior. Them and their disgusting tattoos, revolting people. And always blubbing and claiming their privacy has been invaded. Come on, you Tate brothers. Why don't you man up and grow up and stop harassing young men and pestering people and grifting and grabbing? You're a shameful pair. They wear very strange clothes. All those weird clothes they wear when they do wear clothes. But half the time he doesn't wear any kind of shirt. Can he not afford a shirt? He makes Sam Palmer, the husband of Petra Eccleston, look classy. Sam can't afford to wear a pair of socks, but this one can't even afford to wear a shirt. It's absolutely shocking. Appalled. Their 10 million pounds of cars were going to be seized by the Romanian state to compensate victims, but that has been stopped. That's all I can update you on them. But they are both very strange. End of, says Jane. I agree with you, Jane. Yes. They are very gay. Well, they're very odd. I'll say that. There's nothing wrong with being gay. I have many gay friends. I have many straight friends. I have many friends who are, whatever they want to be. But they're very odd. That's what I will say. They're just very odd. It's not about them being gay. I don't think it's about homosexuality. No, I don't know why many of you are bringing this up. They're just two stupid brothers who, well, they're not stupid, they're evil. The sex traffickers, the monsters, and the misogynists, and the vile, the horrible people. That's all we need to know. And I hope the justice system deals with them as appropriate. They are in the same category as Ghislaine Maxwell. They belong in the clink. Lock them up. I don't like them. But let the justice system do its work. They've not been convicted yet, but their videos, they share their videos. They're more stupid than Ghislaine because their videos show what they do. And what they do is disgusting and wrong. And it's criminal. So let's have them. Do I like David Starkey? I don't like David Starkey, and nor does my father. David Starkey is the son of a cobbler from Kendal, which is near where my father has his home. David Starkey is a fake load of nonsense who is a pretentious prat. No, we don't like David Starkey. He's a right-wing fascist horrible man, ghastly. Right. There's nothing wrong with a cobbler. No, it's nothing. No, but David Starkey pretends that he's some kind of aristocrat. He's a fake. He's not who he claims to be. He's a complete fraud, and he's been exposed. He's been named and shamed. He's a disgrace. Awful man. Right. No. He's like Starmer, the son of a toolmaker. Yes. Again, pretending to be somebody because it suits the narrative. Starmer is a fake. Starmer wants to say, oh, I'm the son of a toolmaker, so he's kind of ordinary. No. It's a load of nonsense. Don't listen to the nonsense of these politicians and these so-called commentators of that type. Absolutely load of rubbish. They tell lies. Sebastian says Michael Barrymore is starting a restaurant. Well, don't go near the door handles and don't go near any kind of lavatorial area in such a place. That's my advice to you. And if he is starting a restaurant, frankly, just don't go there, full stop. Michael Barrymore is a piece of filth, and I hope Keith Bishop, his cowardly PR man, isn't going to try and send me an invitation to the opening, because I don't think he will. But anyway, never mind. Starmer was popular with your friends until he became PM, and then they woke up. You're right. Right. You want me to phone the bishop. The bishop will not answer the phone on a Saturday evening at this time. The bishop is not going to answer the phone, so I can't do that. I've realized that my phone is in another part of the room, and I need the phone for the next segment, which because I need to read a few things off it. So I'm going to have to move around myself in a moment. But anyway, have I ever met any gangsters? Well, I've met people who are accused of being gangsters, yes, but I'm not going to go into that. I think you know why. I think I know why you're asking that question. The word gangster is a very easily thrown around word, and most of the people who are claimed to be gangsters are just tin pot nobodies, and people who supposedly are gangsters, frankly, when you meet them, they're quite civilized people. So I've met all sorts of people in my life. I've met every kind of person in my life, from homeless people to what you call gangsters. And I judge a person by who the person is. I don't judge the person by a label. So I do realize that there are people who come on here to try and provoke me. And, well, you're not going to provoke me. So there we are. I think I understand why you're asking that question. And the people listening will understand that I do know all sorts of people. I'm very, very lucky to spend time with wonderful, wonderful people from all walks of life. And I have to admit, I never expected I would spend time with people who are convicted criminals who I believe to be suffering injustice. And then to go from having 40% belief in that particular person to 99% belief in that person, for example, in one case. But I do. That's what's happened to me. So I look at the evidence. I spend time looking at evidence. I read and I make notes. I have notebooks. I spend my life examining facts. A fact is not a fact until you've proven it's a fact. And people who just go and listen to whatever they read in the Daily Mail or the Mirror or the, down the pub. Well, you're only going to get one view. You're only going to get your one view, aren't you? I look at the facts. I make up my mind and then I nail my colours to the mast. I'm very loyal to the people I support. I support Omar Ben-Gvir. I support Mark Alexander. I support the Menendez brothers. I support Jeremy Bamber. Stuart Mitchell, Luke Mitchell. I support these people, amongst others. I examined the facts to get to where I got to. I wouldn't be doing this, and I support the victims of Ghislaine Maxwell. I support people who should be convicted and people who should be free. There are many instances of injustice in the world. I'm not going to give up. I don't care what happens to me. I'm not an irrelevant. I'm just the person who could live anywhere. I could live in a hobbit hole. It doesn't matter. I could go anywhere in the world and campaign for whoever I need to campaign for because I don't like injustice. I will go wherever I need to go to try and help. The only reason I didn't go to Ghislaine Maxwell's trial was because of the stupid COVID. But Ghislaine is my focus, obviously, because I know more about that case than probably 90% of the people on the planet. There are 10% of the people on the planet who know a lot more about it than me, I will admit. But the other cases, I want to help. And the Menendez brothers, I've been involved in that for over 10 years. And everybody said, oh, you're supporting these horrible, evil boys. They're not horrible, evil boys. They were raped by their father, and mother wanted them to be raped so she didn't get abused herself. What a horrible woman. It's no wonder they did what they did. But they admit that they did wrong. They have been rehabilitated, and it is time for justice. And, as a result of what I said yesterday, I got a load of abuse. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I know that people who hate them and think that they were spoiled brats, well, no. People react to grief in a certain way. Some people cry and some people go out and buy something. That's what happens when I'm not excusing them, but they shouldn't have done what they did. But the parents shouldn't have done what they did. The parents were the monsters. To abuse your own children is one of the worst things on the planet. And to be a mother who allows your children to be abused makes you even worse. Shame on you, Kitty Menendez. Awful woman. Vile. Absolutely sick. It's absolutely horrible what she did. And, what they did to Roy Rossello and the other people as well. Awful. Terrible. Right. Yes, my heart goes out to the brothers. I want them released. I totally agree with you, Marie Page. You're fantastic. Well said. Fair play to you, Matthew. Yes, well, I agree. Well, when are they getting out? Well, the process goes on until June, and hopefully there will either be a decision regarding resentencing, which will reduce it to manslaughter, which means they will have served the time, or it will be a clemency hearing via Gavin Newsom. And I have been the one who, for 10 years, who has called for Gavin, and I've known Gavin for a long, long time, and not well, but, Gavin, I knew him via Maurice Kambar, and Gavin has said, clemency is a possible option here. And clemency will be the best option in my view. I think clemency should be given to the Menendez brothers. Let them out. Their crime was a crime, but their parents committed a crime too. The parents were disgusting and evil. The father did terrible things, and the mother, well, she did even more terrible things in my view. I think both of them are wicked. Awful, awful people. So we want clemency. Well, I want clemency. The supporters of the family will say, let the process run. But that is my particular personal view. So I am not interfering in the family's view. I support the family in whatever way they wish to go. I do support their personal thing, but I would say clemency is what is required. That is my personal view, and I am not interfering with their process. I don't want to cause any trouble to their process. So I'll just give that is a personal opinion. It is no one else's opinion. Right. I want to make that very, very clear. Right. Have I ever had a car towed away or clamped? I think you've probably read the article about me on in the Evening Standard, where I was known as the parking crusader. Yes. I was famously a parking crusader against parking fines. Yes. And I did have a victory over the council in Fulham and Hammersmith, or whatever it was called, to do with my Range Rover. Yes, I did have a victory in that case. Right. I don't know why you asked that question particularly now, but there we go. Would I ever have a TV show if offered? We've talked about this before. I've considered a couple of TV shows, but sadly, the other people who were going to do it with me were not suitable for the TV show offering. So there we go. We'll have to do a different version in the future. Next question. Right. Okay, well, you'd like the quiz. Well, we can save the other matter for tomorrow, I suppose. We'll save Janet for tomorrow then. If you'd like me to save Janet for tomorrow, we can do the quiz now, if you would prefer. Would you like to hear about Janet, the waterer down of drinks, or would you like to do the quiz? Right. Matt wants Janet, and the rest of you want the quiz. Oh no, you all want Janet. Oh gosh, there's loads of you wanting Janet. Well, I'll have to go and get my telephone so you can hear about Janet. Janet is not a nice lady. No, the quiz always comes at the end. We're not doing Janet quiz before Janet. No, you want Damn It Janet. It's not Janet Jackson. You'd like to hear about Janet. Right. Well, I have to go and get my telephone device, which I stupidly left at the other side of the room. It's not Janet Street Porter. Right. You will wait. You'll wait. I'm sorry, we're getting shouting about Janet Jackson. It's nothing to do with Janet Jackson. And it's nothing to do with Janet Street Porter, no. Right, I have to go and get my telephone device because I will have to read certain things off the telephone because there we go. Right, I'll be back in 1 second. Here I am again. Right. There we go. Anyway, here we are. So, right. We're going to talk about a woman called Janet Evans. It's not a very important thing. It's just about the worst bar in London or the worst bar in Britain. It doesn't exist anymore. But I was talking with a friend of mine today about this. It may give you some ideas, and you may come up with some of the even worse bars in England. Yes, Janet Evans. Yes, Janet ran a place called Janet's Bar. It was at 30 Old Brompton Road, South Kensington, SW7. I don't know. Did any of you ever go there? Have you ever been to Janet's Bar in South Kensington? It had a picture of a woman who looked like Janet Street Porter with goofy teeth and big glasses and pearls on the outside of it. It was one of the most ugly-looking places you could imagine. It was in the ground floor of the most filthy-looking hotel you'd ever imagine on the planet. She had a license to run it since 1998. Sebastian immediately says, I've been there, awful Bloody Marys. So, Sebastian, you're one of the first. Did you go on TripAdvisor? Did you leave a remark? Because we're going to come to the remarks. What was your remark about Janet's Bar on TripAdvisor if you left one? Anyway, Janet ran possibly what was called the worst bar in Britain. She is a Conservative councillor still for the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, the Courtfield ward since 2018. She is an absolutely awful woman. You'd like me to call you? Well, I don't know how we deal with that, but we're dealing with Janet right now, so let's focus on Janet. Somebody once said, this now defunct bar was hilarious if you knew what to expect, but quite horrific for many who wandered in. To suggest Janet was eccentric does not begin to describe it. I cannot imagine how many visitors have decided never, ever to come to London again based on their experience in this dive. That was a summary by one visitor. She used to give out free lollipops, free crisps, the infamous free crisps. The crisps were meant to be covered in rat droppings and awful. Everyone talked to everyone there. That was the nicest comment. But she expected you to pay before any drink was prepared. This woman was a complete nightmare. Anyway, her Moscow mules, she would put cherries in them, which was a little odd. You don't put a cherry in a Moscow mule. And yes, she was known as a racist old lady. An allegedly racist rabbit hole was the way her venue was described. She was supposedly fined after being a waterer downer of drinks by weights and measures. She put water into the vodka and the gin. She would water down the alcohol. This woman was a nightmare. The Fence magazine called it the worst bar in London. One review said, a dead body with a suicide note wouldn't be out of place in this venue. Someone else said, there's a strong vibe of mental asylum meets hoarder meets bin picker. Can you imagine this? Merry Christmas, St. Paddy's Day, hen party, to name a few decorations. Random bits of clothing hung around the room. This woman was completely nuts. Photos, drawings, and messages all over the walls. As we walked to the bar initially, we must have walked into someone's fart as it smelt really bad. I was told within about 12 seconds of entering the bar to buy something or leave. That's how this woman behaved. People said, avoid. She is a horrible person. You couldn't make her up. I'd completely forgotten about this, but it came up today. Janet is the worst person I've ever met anywhere, ever in the world. Yes, Councillor Janet Evans, who is a Conservative councillor in Kensington. She is one of the most hated people in Britain. Janet is unhinged. Janet is a sociopath, said another. Time to retire, racist old lady. The worst bar in London. She really, this is like 40 Towers on crack. And, on TripAdvisor, she had 246 reviews. 130 of them, i.e. the majority, said she was in the worst category, terrible. This is how bad this disgusting woman was. She was so rude and horrible. They said, bad decor, eerie atmosphere, kind of like going to a weird punishment dungeon. She insulted anyone who dared to criticize her. She had a horrible pricing structure, but she had a 2 a.m. licensing structure. So because she was a Conservative councillor on Kensington, Chelsea, she ran a bar that was on the ground floor of a grotty hotel. She was able to get away with what she did, and her dead husband was an accountant, allegedly. He obviously helped her structure whatever she did. She is one of the nastiest people I've ever met in my life. She's vile. Lady Min here doesn't want to speak, but she I don't know whether she ever went there, but no, we will have a look at some of the reviews of what's the name's bar. Absolutely awful. Imagine the state of the lavatories. I won't use the word that you used, Matt, because I don't like the word. You should arrange a group visit. Unfortunately, you can't because she's been closed down. That's why I'm talking about it. Right. There we go. So Sebastian says she farted into his cocktail. Oh dear. Well, Janet Evans, honestly, was one of the most awful people ever. I'll read you a few of the reviews. If I can get in to my telephone device. I'm not very good with technology, as you all know. Oh, stupid thing. Okay, here we go. I went here after work with some friends and colleagues, and it was the most horrible experience. Never go there. We were given a very expensive espresso martini that looked like and tasted like dishwater. When we asked for another, Janet put Baileys in it. When we said this did not make it an espresso martini, she gave my partner the finger. Absolutely disgusting behavior for absolutely anywhere, let alone a very expensive bar. Please don't go here. She wrote back, "Thank you for writing in. My barman made a mistake. We would have given you a replacement. Instead of listening and accepting a replacement, you got all aggressive. You were also given a free shot of Baileys. Instead, your friend threw it into the drink. Hey ho, it is the silly season." This woman is absolutely awful. She's one of the... You think that Janice is a legend, says Beck. Okay, right. Well, anyway, that's Janet. If I could give no stars, I would, says another. The worst drinks. Janet is the rudest woman I've ever met. Don't go here. Okay. We went last night and received the worst service I have ever experienced in a bar. My friend, after having ordered drinks, came back to our table almost in tears by the way she was dismissed and spoken to by the awful owner, Janet. After receiving our drinks, we were still treated with the least respect, and I'm certain that having had the small encounter with Janet, we were all sipping on her spit in the drinks. We also ordered hot dogs. This is another of her favorite things. Don't order the hot dogs. They were stale and crusty. And when we complained to the bar staff and Janet about the quality, we were again dismissed and told to sit back down as if we were dogs ourselves. All in all, this is the worst paid place in the world. Do not come here unless you want to be treated with the least respect and being told you're a psychopath. Janet wrote back, "Thank you for your review. We appreciate the fact you will not attend our establishment. We will not miss you for your peeing on the floor and walls, damaging the walls, and ripping down decorations in the bar and the loos, going behind the bar and stealing. Thankfully, a loyal and respectful customer caught you and retrieved the items from you in the street. Good luck with your university degree in business." Can you imagine what an awful woman she is? That's Janet. Can you imagine being Janet? Sebastian says she did serve a lovely gin martini. She had some free abuse and an unwanted kiss on your ear. Well, Sebastian, you're a fool because she added water to your martini. You had a watered down martini because that's what she was famous for. She's a filthy, horrible, disgusting woman. She's worse than Lizzie Cundy. Anyway, that was Janet. So I've shared Janet with the world. Janet and Janet's Bar of South Kensington. The worst bar in history. I think that's what she should be noted down for. You know, there's Kevin Moran who runs the horrible pub in Kinnerton Street. I'll save him for another day. Great friend of Ghislaine Maxwell. I could throw in one of these from time to time, but she is definitely the worst bartender in history. A horrible conservative councillor crook who was known for watering down the drinks. So damn it, jam it, as Sebastian says, and he experienced it. So there we go. Anyway, right, you'd like your quiz, so you can have your quiz. We are at 2 hours exactly, so it's time for your quiz. Right. Okay, have we got someone ready with notepad ready and pen and paper and, you know, whatever? Because I don't know where my notepad is. Right. Have I got a piece of paper? Yes, I have. I can scribble with some kind of pen. Right. Well, thank you for saying it was 2 hours of joy. I don't know if Janet is 2 hours of joy. Janet is 2 hours of jokes. There we go. Right. Okay. Right. You want to do a quiz? We'll do a quiz. So I better put the quiz questions in front of me. Which architect designed dining rooms on the Titanic, the Hotel Russell in Bloomsbury, and is said to be the inspiration for the phrase all dolled up? What was the name of that architect? It wasn't Christopher Wren and it wasn't Janet Evans. Janet couldn't even design a bus ticket, yet alone it wasn't Cilla Black. It wasn't Cilla Black. It wasn't Aldrum. It wasn't Smith. It wasn't Farty Towers. It wasn't Parkinson. No. It wasn't the Ritz manager. It wasn't Mr. Andrews. It looks like we're going to award 0 points at this rate. It wasn't Constable. It wasn't Oldham. No. It wasn't Harland and Wolff, who of course were associated with the Titanic, but not that particular. No. So 0 points. 0 points awarded. 0 points. So nobody wins a point. Sorry to say it. You get 0 points. The answer was Charles Fitzroy Dole. He was the inspiration for the phrase all dolled up. So there you are. You've all learnt something new tonight. The architect who designed the rooms on the dining rooms on the Titanic, the Hotel Russell in Bloomsbury, and was inspired all dolled up, is Charles Fitzroy Dole. So remember that. That's something useful you could throw into a conversation. That is what my friend Giles Brandreth always says. When you have an opportunity to learn a new word or a new thing, try and once you learn it, throw it into the conversation the next week to somebody else. So then you keep something new in your mind. It's a wonderful way to keep your mind alive. And this is why people like my father are brilliant, because you have to continually learn something new. When if you continually learn something new, you keep your mind alive. So it's a wonderful thing to do. Anyway, I'm not going to lecture everybody, but I'm just saying, I realize you didn't get the answer. So question number one, nobody got the point. So now we're down to 19 questions. So, right. Which former boxer wrote in his autobiography, "What I do is fall in love with every product that I sell. That's what sells, just like preaching." He's most notably associated with an electric grill. It's not Henry Cooper, no. And we have to have full names, full names. So Daniel Wildgoose, you can have the point, Daniel. We have to have full names. I've said this before. I want full names. I don't want just surnames. If you want to answer a question on my quiz, you have to give the entire name, and you should really spell it correctly. I don't think incorrect spelling should be allowed. So anyway, we'll allow him to have it. Right. In which year did Tim Martin found Wetherspoons, also known as J.D. Wetherspoon? Not 1923, not 1989. None of your answers are correct, apart from Adam. Adam gets it correct. It is 1979. So Wetherspoons has 42,000 employees, and its name comes from J.D. Hogg of the Dukes of Hazzard, because Mr. Tim Martin liked that name. And Wetherspoon was one of his teachers in New Zealand. He has very strange rules in his pubs. He doesn't allow social media. He doesn't like dogs. He doesn't like the internet. He has weird carpets. He's a very strange man. He's a complete oddity. I've had lunch with him once. Awful man. Ghastly. Not someone I'd ever want to meet ever again. He probably wouldn't want to meet me again either, so the feeling is mutual. So there we go. The carpets stink. Yes, he has different carpets for every pub, and they all look like they're a bit odorish. There we go. Right. Which aristocrat went to prison for an insurance fraud involving burying Ferraris and appeared on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in 2004? Daniel gets a second point. Well done, Daniel. It is Lord Brocket, Charlie Brocket, twice married with 5 children. Who is Red Bull Racing CEO Christian Horner married to? Who is the chief of Red Bull Racing married to? Who's had a bit of a sexting scandal. Who's he married to? It's not Anthea Turner. It's not Paul Daniels. Daniel gets yet another point. Daniel is well in the lead. It, of course, is Jerry Halliwell. What is the currency of Denmark? What is the currency of Denmark? Miss Marple spells it incorrectly, but there are alternatives. It's the krona, but I'll accept Miss Marple's answer. It's the krone. What is a group of pugs called? A group of pugs, the dogs. What is a group of them called? A group of pugs. It's not called a pack. It's not called a snuffle. It's not called... Adam gets yet a second point. Well done, Adam. It is a grumble. So Adam is now in second place. Miss Marple is in third place, and Daniel is in first place. Which one is longer, a nautical mile or a mile? Nautical or a mile? A nautical mile or a mile? Which is longer? Daniel gets a 4th point because, of course, it is a nautical mile. A nautical mile is 1.15 normal miles. Who wrote Uptown Girl in 1983? The working class downtown man attempting to woo a wealthy uptown girl. Who wrote that? The winner is again Daniel. Daniel is now on 5 points. Daniel, you're too quick. You're very quick, Daniel. It was Billy Joel. Which model and loose women panelist is the rock star Sir Rod Stewart married to? So we can have 2 options for her name. It's not Michael Barrymore. Matt Grant gets it with Penny Lancaster. Matt Grant gets a point. Penny Lancaster, who's also, of course, known as Lady Stewart because she's married to Sir Rod. She's also a policewoman. There we go. In how many races was the amazing racehorse Black Caviar undefeated? How many races? It's not 5. It's not 101. It's not 23. It's not 20. No. Adam gets the point. Well done, Adam. So you've now got 3 points. Adam is now in second place. Well done, Adam, because, of course, it was 25. The horse, Black Caviar, I had dinner with the owners. Wonderful people. What an amazing success story that horse was. So it was never whipped. It had 15 Group 1 wins. It lived between 2006 2024. It was 17 when it died. 9 foals in 11 years. There are amazing horses to come from Black Caviar. One of the best horses on the planet. Absolutely fabulous story. So, which company invented Pringles in 1968? Which company invented Pringles? It wasn't Walker's, it wasn't McCain, it wasn't Pepsi Cola, it wasn't Coca-Cola, it wasn't Harrods, it wasn't Philip Morris, it wasn't Nestle, it wasn't Lay's. Lay's is a very big manufacturer of crisps, but no, you've got the wrong thing. It wasn't Pringles, because the name of the thing, Pringles, was not invented by Pringles. It wasn't Seabrooks. And Seabrooks, my friend's family owned Seabrooks. I loved Seabrooks crisps as a child. Absolutely. I miss Seabrooks crisps. I don't know how you get those. I don't know if they still even exist. It wasn't Frederick Bohr. It wasn't Pepsi. It looks like we're going down to 18 questions now because none of you can answer. You failed to answer the question. You loved the Seabrooks prawn cocktails. Yes. Oh, yes, I loved the Seabrooks prawn cocktail. My friends at school owned Seabrooks, so I used to have Seabrooks, boxes and boxes of those crisps. They were like my mini cheddars before I had my mini cheddars. Right, Stevie D, actually, who wasn't joining in, wins. You get a point, Stevie D. The answer is Procter and Gamble, one of the biggest companies on the planet. How on earth could you not know the answer to that? I'm trying to give you easier questions. You want easier questions? For God's sake. Seriously. Right. I'm going to ask you another question. Which brand markets itself with the slogan, "Once you pop, the fun don't stop"? Originally, it was marketed as "Once you pop, you can't stop." Miss Marple wins with Pringles, so you get a second point. You're now in third place, Miss Marple. You're doing very well. We've only got two questions that haven't been answered. Right. Which Scottish band released the song "Closer" in 2007? It features the band as clerks in a supermarket and Ben Stiller in cameo. Matt Grant gets the point. So Matt Grant has got a second point. It is Travis. There we go. What does the SNP stand for? What does it stand for? It was founded in 1934. The SNP. Miss Marple gets a point, which takes her into joint second position. It is the Scottish National Party. In which town does chef Rick Stein primarily operate? He's been criticised today for overpriced fish and chips. It's a town in Cornwall. But I need the town. Adam gets it. So Adam, my goodness, Adam is rocketing into second place. Well done, Adam. It is Padstow. Well done. Padstow. Who did Paula Yates leave for Michael Hutchins 9 years after their 1986 marriage? Who did she leave? Daniel gets a 6 point. My gosh, Daniel is rocketing in the lead. It, of course, was Bob Geldof. Which other member of the royal family turned up at the hen do of Sarah, Duchess of York, as she became, dressed as a police officer at Annabelle's? It wasn't Charles. It wasn't Andrew. Linz gets a point. It was Diana, Princess of Wales. They turned up and Annabelle's dressed up as a pair of police officers, and they were told they couldn't have dinner dressed as a police officer. Okay, so we've not got many of you getting points tonight, but you see, if I make this quiz easier, I only get like 4 or 5 of you getting points. If I make it harder, I get 10 or 12 of you joining in. So I will stick to my normal way of doing this in the future. Anyway, your penultimate question is, what is bees and honey Cockney rhyming slang for? What is bees and honey? Bees and honey. Linz gets a second point. You've done very well, Linz. Of course, bees and honey means money. Right. What type of tree is a Leyland cypress? What type of tree is a Leyland cypress? It's famous for neighborly disputes. It can grow up to 49 foot in height in 16 years. It's associated with Leighton Hall, Powers estate of banker Christopher Leyland. Right, so no, it's not a fir. No, it's not an oak. It's not an ash. No, certainly not. What will I accept? Let's think. Which will I accept from you? I think Simon Coates, you can have the point. It is a conifer. Simon Coates, you have the point. 1 point to Simon Coates. So Daniel Wildgoose is the winner. in my view. I don't know if my score taker agrees. You have 6 points out of 18 because 2 of the questions were failed to be answered, which is a very great shame because they were very good questions. I think that you got 6, and I think Adam has done extremely well with 4, and Miss Marple has done extremely well with 3. So, fastest finger forward. Well done, you. Yes. Anyway, I won't be changing the quality of my questions. This was an experiment. I wrote it this morning. Tomorrow I'll be going back to my tougher questions. So there you go. I've got 2 pages of those, I think, left. Yeah, I've got 2 of those left. So if you want weak questions, don't come here. But I think you did very well. You got 6 out of 18. That's pretty good because you were very quick. Because there's no way you went on Google. You did it quickly. You were very, very, very quick. In the past, I do think people were cheating. Right. Daniel wins with 6. Yes. Thank you, Stevie D. Thank you for being a great Debbie McGee. Stevie McGee. Stevie D, Debbie McGee. Yep, that's what you were. Right. We won't go. Could I consider phoning a chat member each night? I don't know what you mean, phoning people. Who do you want me to phone? And I don't know how to do it. I'm not quite sure how that would work. I'm not very good with technology, as you already know. So me phoning up people is not really. You'd have to phone me. You could phone in and I could put you live on the air. That could work. My friend Cult Television, who is my very good friend, says, you don't quite see me as Noel Edmonds. You can bog off and don't you dare. I don't want to be Noel Edmonds. I can't stand that rancid rat. He's awful. No, thank you. Don't do that, please. No. I don't want Mr. Blobby. No, I know all about the Mr. Blobby scandal involving Morecambe. So I know all about Mr. Blobby and the Midland Hotel Morecambe. Please, I don't want to go into all that nonsense. Yeah, that was another weird saga in my life. So no, thank you. No. Right, I don't want the grunge tank. No, the Blobby scandal. Yes. Eric Morecambe. Well, yeah, his statue's outside the hotel. But anyway, I don't want to talk about all that. That's the past. It's a very sad story in my life, involving someone I grew up with who was very ill. I don't want to talk about that. We grew up together and he died and it was horrible and that was not very nice as children and I don't want to talk about it. So no, please go away with that stupid story. No. It's not fair to the family. They're a nice family. They've had enough trouble with their story. And that's no more on that, please. It's 30 years ago. I don't want to talk about it. Not nice. No. Not prepared to talk about it. Sorry. Shut up and leave me alone on that one. Because that's someone I had as a childhood friend and they died. And their mother, the situation is complicated. No, not prepared to talk about it. Right, you want to talk cocktails? Says right. Okay, right. Liven it up. Throw in a party. Come on, cult television. What cocktail do you want to talk about? Okay, we'll change the topic. I really think that's a better thing to do. Come on, let's liven it up, visitors. Right, I think that's the best thing to do. Right, come on. What cocktails do you want to talk about? What's the most unusual drink I've ever had? Well, the very worst drink I've ever had is Aqua de V. I drank Aqua de V with the Honourable Thomas Noel and two sort of models at Annabelle's when Annabelle's was the real Annabelle's after dinner, and we drank a bottle of it. I had a hangover for 5 days. That was the very worst thing I've ever drunk. It was hell. It was £600 a bottle, I believe. I wasn't paying, thank God, but it poisoned me. We drank an entire bottle of it. Aqua de V, which means, the water of life. Don't drink it. Don't drink even the best quality, which we did. Poisoned. I was absolutely poisoned. And recently here in France, I made the mistake of going to a local shop. On this bloody local shop. I think it keeps things for months on end. It sold me a bottle of lemonade. I normally love lemonade. Well, I drank a pint of this stuff. I've never vomited so much in my life. That was the worst drink I've ever had. It's the second worst drink I've ever had. I've never felt so ill from again. It wasn't as bad as the Aqua de V, which took 5 days, but it was awful. Don't ever drink drinks from funny shops. Go to normal shops. This shop sells like things that are very odd. You can't trust this shop, and I honestly have to say, this lemonade, I have never, ever, ever tasted anything so bad, but I drank it. I don't know why I drank it. Anyway, the rest of it went down the drain. But a pint of it poisoned me. So no, never again. Never, ever, 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 ever again will I be trusting odd places. And they don't have in this country here, France, they don't put dates on the products. I noticed this. Why should they get away with this? They should put dates. Because everything in other places has dates on it. I can't see any dates on their products. It's all very odd. Anyway, never mind. Next question. You're having a lemonade in your San Miguel. Okay. Matt says Janet's lemonade is delicious. Well, Janet's been closed down, but anyway. What's Lady Min's favourite drink? Well, we all know that. It's white wine. Right. Breakfast tomorrow. Well, I have Yorkshire tea, obviously. Right, next question. You like Sambuca? I certainly don't like that. No, not for me. Right. Okay, next question. Any more questions, please? Right. Well, we've finished all our questions. So, do we have any more topics? My cereal of choice. I don't eat cereal. Never did. Never would. Not interested. I don't like cornflakes. I don't like Weetabix. I don't like any of that horrible kind of. Ugh. Am I near a beach? I'm kind of near one, but I couldn't go to one because there's a storm. It's not really the place to go. Do I like Marmite? Yes and no. I'm not a Marmite lover, and I'm not a Marmite hater. I'm a weirdo because I'm in the middle. There you go. I'm a bit wishy-washy on that one. So I'm not actually predictable. I couldn't say I loved Marmite, but I couldn't say I hated it. So I'm really odd. Right. Do I love Donald Trump? No. I don't love Donald Trump. I don't like Donald Trump, but I think Donald Trump's disruption is adding a bit of interest to the world, and I actually don't think that's a bad thing. I know I will not be popular with my friends for saying that, but I think disruption is never a bad thing. But I don't like the man, no. I think he's a deeply unpleasant man. But it doesn't mean that what he's doing isn't useful. But I don't like his agenda, no. I certainly don't like his agenda, no, never. And I don't like Elon Musk and his agenda, no. But look, we all need a bit of disruption, and we need a bit of disruption in Britain. This Starmer needs to be stopped. I'm more interested in stopping Starmer than I am in what goes on with America. It's not my business. Have I been to Pont de Garde? No, I've not been to Pont de Garde as far as I'm aware. Right. Do I eat chocolate? Yes, I do. Yes, I like chocolate. Some kinds of chocolate. It depends what kinds of chocolate it is. Should the UK operate ID cards? I don't have a view. Whether possibly. Have I been to Avignon? I've been there, yes. Right. Stop Labour. Yes, I agree with that. Don't like Labour. Right. I don't know. Musk is weird looking. He's definitely an oddity. There's some very strange questions, and I won't be answering all of them. Should we rejoin the European Union? Well, it would be more convenient for people like us, yes, if we did. So perhaps yes. When are you coming back up to Scotland? Well, hopefully very, very soon. That's my plan. I would love to come and live in Scotland, and that is my plan. Where did I get my fleece from? My Bernard Wetherell, of course, the wonderful Bernard Wetherell. Yes, it wasn't a gift from them. No, I paid for it, and I love it. I love everything from them. So yeah, love everything from Bernard Wetherell. It's a different shade from yesterday. Well, yes, I do vary my colours. So there we go. Have I met Samantha Fox? No, I've never met Samantha Fox. No. Food of choice when in Scotland. Well, obviously an Aberdeen Angus steak or some lovely salmon, yes, or something else like that. The Scottish food is the best. Scotland is the best place in the world. I love Scotland. I absolutely love and adore the Scottish people. They are the best people on the planet. They make great clothes. They make great food. They are a bit chippy. They can be a bit difficult, which is like me. I wouldn't want to be in the Glaswegian ones and the Edinburgh ones. The Edinburgh ones are very nice, actually. No, there's nothing wrong with the Edinburgh ones. The Glaswegian ones are a bit angry. But I like the rural ones. They're the better ones. I love a Scot. Yes. You'd go to the Highlands and you'd go to the borders and you come up to Aberdeenshire. Okay. Well, I'd love to visit Aberdeenshire. I've not been to Aberdeenshire. So there we go. I'd be delighted to visit you. Scots rock. Yes, I agree. I think Scottish people are the best people on the planet because they've got there's some, the lovely people I knew, the Baxters, they were born to make soup. Absolutely lovely family. Absolutely wonderful people to spend time with. Ina Baxter, absolutely, and her daughter Audrey, absolutely lovely, lovely people. I think what a wonderful business they've run. Absolutely changed the world, and I love their soups. I love the Royal Highland broth and the lobster bisque and all the rest that they make, and particularly their parsnip soup is what was my favorite from them. Cult TV says their soup is fantastic. Yes, I totally agree with Cult TV. Yes, you are bang on the nail. We love a bit of parsnip soup from Ina Baxter. Well, Ina is sadly dead, but yes, my grandmother was a great fan. So there we go. Yep, Baxter's is good, says Hatchy. Royal Game, yes, the Royal Game soup. Oh, yes, I liked a bit of that. But it wasn't one I wanted to have every day. The parsnip one, oh, yes, I'd have that every day of the week. Have I ever tried a bagpipe cocktail? No, I haven't tried a bagpipe cocktail, Sebastian. I don't know what a bagpipe cocktail is. Stevie D goes fishing close to their old factory in Fife. Well, I used to go and stay in Forres near Elgin, Dornoch, and Inverness, Sutherland, and all the rest. So, yes, Miss Marple loves Forres. Forres is a lovely place, absolutely delightful, wonderful whiskey made there as well. Scotland is in my soul. I love Scotland, and I love Iona and Staffa and Fingal's Cave and all the places I used to go there. Absolutely beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful. Have I been to the Edinburgh Tattoo? No, I've never been to the Edinburgh Tattoo, but I've been to Edinburgh, and I love the Royal Mile, and I love walking it, and I love Arthur's Seat, and Edinburgh is a beautiful city. It's the nicest city on the planet other than San Francisco, in my view. Out of the two, I love San Francisco as a city most because San Francisco is so civilized. It's an easy place to walk around, but I would say Edinburgh comes second as the most civilized city on the planet. They're both wonderful places to walk around, and as that makes them much more pleasant than big cities like London, which is so spread out. I would say San Francisco is more beautiful because it has more trees, and I like the trees, and I love trees. Wherever you go, there are trees, and that's very, very nice. But I think they're both fantastic. But I think London's a lovely city too in many, many ways. It's just a different kind of city. I just think it's a great shame that London has this disgusting, revolting mayor, Sadiq Khan. He is turning the place into a shit show. He's wrecking the city. He is an absolute shameless scumbag. It's disgraceful what he's done. Have I been to the west coast of America lately? No, I haven't. But I think that's maybe what I perhaps should do. I have to leave this place very, very quickly because, there's a 90-day rule and you can't live somewhere for too long in Europe. Maybe I should go to America because maybe that's a good thing to do because that's perhaps where I should go. And, I can talk in America and I'll be welcomed. And I'll ask Gavin to make sure I get welcomed. Would do me good. Could be a good idea. Could be a good idea to go to America. I'd like to go and do things with the Menendez brothers when they get freed. I want to see the Menendez brothers freed. America is the place that I hold dear in my heart because I spend so much time there as a child. I love America, and I think America is one of the greatest nations on the planet. Yep, I'd love to go back to America, so that could be a possibility. I don't know. We'll see what happens. You're inviting me to stay in Santa Monica. Well, that's very kind. Thank you. That's very kind. I'd come and visit you in Santa Monica. Santa Monica is a lovely place, so I'd love to visit. Right. Okay. Lisa Sante, we would love to welcome you. Right. Okay. You drove from Seattle to San Diego. Well, I used to live in Seattle briefly in my life, and my mother was very involved in her work in Seattle. I've been to see the whales in Seattle. I've been to see the redundant warships in Seattle. I've been everywhere in Seattle. I've been to Mount St. Helens, and our car broke down on Mount St. Helens and we had to be rescued. That was an interesting day out. My mother wasn't very happy because, me demanding that I wanted to go and visit a volcano, and then the car broke down. It was all my fault, obviously. So, that's always what happens in my life. But I'm a weirdo. I'm obsessed with weird things. I like to look at things. And my mother, the silly car just broke down. And, well, it wasn't my fault and it wasn't my mother's fault, but she got very angry with me. And I remember that day very well. I got shouted at because we had to go and wait for a stupid tow truck at the top of a volcano, and my mother was getting rather stressed. So anyway, we won't go into that boring story, but that's another boring story. But I like to look at things, and I was very fascinated by the growth of the vegetation around the earth up the top of the mountain. And it was over 10 years, or it was many more than 10 years later after the volcano, but it was amazing how everything grew back. And I was just so interested in it because that's what I do. I'm just interested in everything like this. I'm just a person who gets fascinated by a topic. If I'm interested in something, my mind goes mad. If I'm not, boring. I'm very useless. But I just love to know about things. Yeah, there we are. You're fascinated by the Little Turtle Mountains in Maine are made of pink granite. Well, there we go. I don't know anything about the Little Turtle Mountains in Maine that are made of pink granite, but that is an interesting thing to learn about. I would be very interested to know. Sebastian says he once climbed a mountain in Scotland and never came down. Well, oh dear. Well, so you're texting us from the top of a mountain, are you? I don't know what you're talking about. You're obviously talking a little bit nonsense. All right. Do any of your friends or family call you Matt? Says Matt. Okay, Matt. Yes, many people do, but I prefer they didn't. But people can call me anything because they generally call me more abusive things, so it doesn't really matter. Never mind. Anyway, do I think that Elon Musk has too much power? Yes, I suppose I do. But look, I'm not going. My opinion on such is not going to change anything, so it doesn't really matter, does it? But I do think he has a bit too much power. Yes. Right. Right. Do I like Robert Graves? I can't say I know Robert Graves, so and Beryl Graves. No, I don't know them, so I can't possibly comment. What would you call an Egyptian taxi driver? Oh, I think that's some kind of joke, but there we go. I better not repeat it because it could be considered unfortunate. Right. Next question. Okay. Would I go in a rocket to the moon? No, not interested in space travel. I don't see the point myself. Not for me. Other people might enjoy that, but that's just something I don't want to do. Just not personally interested in it. I've never been interested in it. No, thank you. No. Have I ever smoked a spliff? No, never. I've never smoked cannabis. I've never taken cocaine. I sound a bit like Bill Clinton here. No, I've never done any of these things. I drink alcohol. And I did used to smoke cigarettes, yep, lots of them, when I was a child because it was rebellion. So I did it. I don't care. I did it. But I don't need to take drugs. And I've seen the damage the drugs do. I spent a lot of time with a man called James Stunt, and he put 40 million pounds of cocaine up his nose, basically. Not a great idea. I've seen other people die. I had a school friend. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story now. It's going to make me cry, in fact, because it's such an upsetting story. I don't know why I'm going to do this, but I think it'll save me having to do it another day since you're banging on about drugs. When I was a child, we had a neighbor, and the father was a surgeon, and he was called Ferguson, Dr. Surgeon Ferguson, or whatever he was called. And Dr. Ferguson had a child. Anyway, his son was 5 years older than me. And because my parents were always traveling, my parents didn't mind me having, the neighboring children as friends. And this boy used to come round to the house to help me build Lego. And I was a bit of a spoilt child. I had more Lego than anyone on the bloody planet. I built models of cities out of Lego in my room that I had for my Lego. I had a room for Lego. I was a spoilt, horrible brat. And this young boy, I'm not going to give the full name because I don't want you all looking all up too much, but you'll find it anyway. But anyway, we used to make our Lego cities together, but he used to come round and he would smoke cannabis. And my mother, because my mother has tried lots of these substances herself, let's be honest. Sorry, mother, I probably shouldn't have declared that you did such, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You know, we live in a different era. You got cross eventually because you knew what this person was doing, and this person he never ever offered me anything. He was very kind. He was a nice, kind person to me. He was my friend, and he smoked lots of drugs. And I was 10 years old, but my mother said no more. Out. And I got very angry with my mother and said, "Why are you stopping me seeing my friend?" Anyway, he went away. And what ultimately happened to Timothy, so I'm sorry, I've given you his name now. So Timothy, my friend, got more and more involved in drugs. You know, I became 10 and he became 15. And Timothy went in more and more into drugs. And he got on a motorbike and he crashed a motorbike into a wall whilst high on cocaine. He smashed a motorbike into a wall high on cocaine. This is a lesson for why you should not take drugs. And this is, I don't know why I'm talking about this, because this will make me cry. I'm bound to cry in a moment because I never talk about this because it's so upsetting to me. But Timothy took the drugs and he ended up in a wheelchair. That's a pretty bad place to begin. This is the son of a doctor. And they lived, they were our next door neighbors, basically. They lived in where we lived. And then Timothy had a child with another drug addict, a heroin addict. So I was introduced to the child. I'm not going to say what my relationship is with this particular child at this moment, but he had a child with a drug addict, but I think you could probably guess. So it's very sad. But it gets worse. It gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. This is the beginning of the horrible story. And this is why you shouldn't take drugs. You should never, ever get involved with drug dealers, especially heroin. Heroin is the worst of the worst. And Timothy had a child with a heroin addict. And then, and we went to the same school. We had, okay, I was 5 years younger than him, so I wasn't ever there at the same time as him. This is going to make me so upset. I just don't really like to talk about this. I don't know why I'm doing it. I don't know how this has happened, but Timothy McPherson was his name. Okay, you can Google it. He was murdered by someone from the Netherlands in the end. But anyway, we'll come to that. I'm very sad. The person in the background is pouring herself wine. This is like the thing that upsets me the most in the world, and I find this the hardest thing to talk about ever. So what happened next was the child was born to this heroin addict he had a child with, and he drove his motorbike into a wall at high speed, high on cocaine or heroin or whatever he was on. Can you imagine doing such a stupid thing when you're a supposedly intelligent young person? And then, to cope with this, he became a drug dealer and he started selling cannabis. And he ended up somehow in Manchester. And my mother said, "You're not to have any more contact with this person. You must not." And I did as I was told, actually, for once in my life, because I thought he was illogical. I thought he was crazy. Anyway, he upset the wrong people. So they stabbed him to death. They stabbed him to death in an alleyway. They literally and they murdered this poor man, Timothy McPherson, my friend, my childhood friend who I used to help me build my Lego towers. They stabbed him to death. And the worst thing about it, they couldn't catch the killer, but they caught the man who stole the Rolex watch off his wrist. The janitor, the bin man who stole his watch. Can you imagine? In Britain, stealing from a dead body is actually a very, very serious criminal offense. And the janitor, the bin man, the disgusting janitor, stole the watch off his body. And I don't know whatever became of the poor child by the heroin addict. It disappeared. And I think of that poor child all the time. Every morning I wake up and that's one of the first things I ever think of is the child. I don't talk about it to anybody. I don't know why I'm talking about it to you. I don't talk about it very often. This is the first time I've talked about it in probably 3 or 4 years. The child of Timothy McPherson, I hope the child has got a good person looking after it, because the mother was not a good mother. And the father, well, he's dead. So I'm very sorry. And it upsets me to even think about it. And I don't really want, I don't know why I had to think about it. But anyway, you brought me an awful story again. But I'm not making it up. Google it. The man from the Netherlands, Google him. Find him. Yep. And he went to my school also, allegedly. But I didn't meet him ever. No. But Timothy was my neighbor. And, we grew up with him as a person we knew. But my mother and father had certain views about the parents because they were deeply religious and they were a little bit too religious, I will say. That's my views on them. But there we go. I'm sorry. I don't know how to. I cannot process talking about this very easily. Thank you for sharing. No, I shouldn't have shared this story at all. I didn't want to talk about this ever again. I did this 5 years ago. Yeah, the killer was a vile person. Yeah, because he was in a wheelchair when he was killed. He was stabbed to death in a wheelchair, and then he was robbed by the bin man. The bin man is the most disgusting piece of reprehensible shit you could imagine. Can you imagine robbing something from a body? That's horrible. That's the horrible, horrible thing to do. Awful. What he did, the bin man was sent to prison for his crime, and that was a very serious crime because to rob from a corpse is actually considered a very serious crime, as it should be. Well done to the prosecutors who prosecuted that horrible man. No, terrible and disgusting. And I still think of the poor child, the missing child, because the child had a heroin addict mother. God knows what happened to the child. It makes me very sad. I'm very, very, very saddened by it. I don't talk about these things that I've been through in my life. I was personally kidnapped, and I don't go on about that. I'll tell you that story another day. That's another story. That was a weird story, but that affected me personally. But this is a story of a poor child who has been affected far worse. What happened to me is a nothing compared to what happened to this poor child. This poor child, its father's dead and its mother's a heroin addict. So what happened to that child? And no one knows where that child went, as far as I'm aware, because I keep asking questions about that. I've asked for many years. My story is boring. I'm not important. But that child's story is very important. That child needs, a child needs a mum and a dad, always. Well, dad's dead and mum's a heroin addict. So where's the child? God only knows. I don't know what to say. It's a horrible, horrible story, and it upsets me very much. Wouldn't you agree over there?
Yeah, I would say, where's the grandmother?
Well, the grandmother's absolutely useless, but there we go. There we are. Rest in peace, Timothy. Yes, Timothy should rest in peace. Timothy was my friend who I used to build Lego with, and I used to have lovely times as a child with him, and my mum and dad will agree about that. But honestly, he ended up being a complete idiot. He got himself involved with the wrong kind of people, and then it went worse, and it got worse and worse and worse, and then he ended up stabbed to death, which wasn't very nice. And he could have been a wonderful person because he was very intelligent. and he was my friend, and I'm very sorry. Cult TV wants something more cheerful. Okay, let's talk about something more cheerful. Cheer it up, round it up. Come on. I need something more cheerful too. Yes, you're quite correct. I can't be miserable. No. I can't be miserable all the time. Can't do it. Not possible. Right. I need another drink, to be honest. I'm very sad. Yes, Miss Marple says. What was the last film I enjoyed?
Gone with the Wind.
It wasn't Gone with the Wind, and it wasn't.
Probably the lights out.
All right. Will I be having a Sunday lunch? Not that I'm aware of. I haven't been invited to one. I don't know. Janet's pub was Gone with the Wind. That was definitely true. Janet's pub was a disgrace. Right. Well, there we go. Gone with the Wind by Janet Evans. Oh, right. Okay. What's my favorite Hitchcock film? I like The Birds. I've done the tours of everywhere in San Francisco of Hitchcock. Yes. I met a man who was a world expert on Hitchcock, and he took me on a tour of San Francisco, every location of Hitchcock. So that was very, very interesting. I loved that. So there you go. I do love that. Cult TV loves The Birds too. So there we go. Right. Have I seen Boogie Nights? No, I haven't. Right. Did I meet Elvis Costello? No, not met Elvis Costello. Any movies you like? Well, lots of them. I don't have what's called favorites, though. You all want a favorite. I don't do favorite. I love The Remains of the Day. I love Whistle Down the Wind. I love let me think.
99 Steps.
Kind Hearts and Coronets. Have I ever sailed to the Isle of Wight? I've sailed round the Isle of Wight on the Mount Gay boat in round the island race. Yes, I've been on done that. There we go. Who have you never met that you would like to have met? Living or dead, Stevie D. Who would I like to have met? Who would I like to have met? Well, I don't know. If it's a dead person, I suppose it's easier. Who would I like to have met? I don't know. I can't think of anybody at the moment. That's a very difficult. I wouldn't want to meet Janet Evans, by the way. No. You want me to meet Debbie Dallas. Did I ever meet George Michael? Okay, I'll come back to your question. Did I ever meet George Michael? No, but I know a lot of his family and a lot of his associates. And I did spend a lot of time with them.
Got a spotlight on me.
Now she's complaining. Right. What do I think of the royal family? I think the royal family are absolutely fabulous. Wonderful people. Absolutely great. Love them all. Absolutely great. Other than Prince Andrew and the Duchess of York and Prince Harry and the horrible Meghan. They're the four horrors of the disgusting affair. But the rest of them
Brilliant.
love the king, love the queen, love everybody else. Absolutely great people, but we don't like Megain and we don't like Randy Andy. No, definitely not. So, load of rubbish. Right. Cult Television says, I remember meeting Jacqueline Bizet with you, and you told me off for being cheeky. Precisely. You shouldn't have been cheeky to Jacqueline Bizet with me because you were in my presence. Cult Television. I know full well who you are. Jacqueline Bizet is, a very opinionated lady. She's a very, very demanding lady. But anyway, I love you very much, Cult Television, even if you were a bit naughty with Jacqueline Bizet in my presence. But have I ever met Billy Connolly? No, I've never met Billy Connolly. Never met him in my life. No, but I'm sure he's a very nice man. Right. You once met George Michael on Hampstead Heath a few times. Oh, well, you must have been a bit of a naughty boy if you were meeting him on Hampstead Heath, because that's probably where he was cruising around for a bit of naughtiness. So you must be very naughty, whoever you are. Right, Matt Grant. Naughty Matt Grant. I think you could be a bit of a naughty boy in that sense. Right. Right. Boom, boom. Yes. Have I met Boy George? Boy George is one of the most repugnant people on the planet. Boy George makes me feel sick. He is disgusting. He's revolting. He's evil. My friend Auden Clark's was raped by him and chained to a radiator by him, and he was convicted and sent to jail for what he did to my friend Auden. Auden is a lovely person, and Boy George is a piece of scum and a piece of detritus. I cannot stand Boy George. Boy George is a disgusting, evil, 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 evil man. So, Boy George, no thanks. Don't ever say anything nice about him. Cult TV, we don't like Boy George. Yeah. Right. No, Boy George is a horrible, horrible man. Our friend Auden is a good man who comes from a nice family, and I love his mother, lovely lady, great person. They're delightful people. Don't you dare ever say anything positive in my place about Boy George. He is horrible. He's vile. He's scum of the earth. He's like Barrymore. He's revolting. I don't like people who do things like that. And my friend Auden is a lovely, kind, decent man who was chained to a radiator by him. Okay, they had some kind of interaction, but it does not mean that you should be treated in the fashion that he was. And Boy George was convicted of a criminal offense. Boy George is a criminal, and he is disgusting. He's filth, he's scum, he's dirt, he's detritus. This man, Auden, is a friend of my friend John Simpson, all sorts of people. He's a lovely, lovely man, and he's done no wrong. And, he suffered because of that horrible, horrible Boy George. Boy George is filth. He's another piece of creep. Absolutely appalling. I don't know why you're making jokes about Terry Waite, because Terry Waite is also a friend of mine. So please don't make jokes about Terry Waite. Terry Waite survived terrible things, and Terry Waite is a very, very, very dear friend. And Terry Waite and I campaigned to do with Mark Alexander. So please don't make sick jokes. I don't like people making these horrible jokes. I know you like to make fun of everything on here, and I know you're trying to wind me up, and you think that I'll easily react because I'm an angry person. But Seriously? What is wrong with you people? Put a sock in it, you stupid people. I don't need to hear your nonsense. I will not tolerate your nastiness. Leave these people alone. A man who was raped by the horrible boy George, and now you're having a go at Terry Waite. Seriously. Are you people sick? Are you mentally unhinged? Were you born in a barn? Were you born in a ditch? Were you born with no brain? Don't you dare try and upset me any further, because I will tell you where to go. So bog off. Unacceptable in 1984 and definitely unacceptable in 2025. So shame on you. Thank you. Not prepared to tolerate any more of that. Right. Right. Well, anyway. Did I ever meet Jonathan Aitken? Of course I met Jonathan Aitken. I'm great friends with Jonathan Aitken's children, and Jonathan Aitken is a vicar, and I've met him many, many times. Yes. So there you go. There you go. You can have whatever you want, but I'm not going to tolerate abuse of this kind. It's absolutely unacceptable. You think Alexandra Aitken is gorgeous? Well, I know Alexandra. She's a very nice young lady. She's the same age as me, so I haven't seen her in a while, but yep, I used to see her often. But anyway, nothing wrong with her, but there we go. Right, you're moving on the topic, so thank you. Well, what do I think about Jonathan Ross? I've never met Jonathan Ross, but I think his behavior is appalling with the awful, horrible, awful man. I forget his name. The awful creep. Anyway, never mind. Never mind. Russell Brand. That's the one. Yep, you've got it. Right. You've worked with Russell Brand. He's an egomaniac. You did some work in LA with him. Well, I can say I quite believe you. Right. Comedian of choice. Do I think Prince pumped Sheena Easton? I don't know what that means. I have no idea. No idea. Right. Anyway, it's 11:15
What?
here in France. It is probably time that I wound down this chat, because I don't even have a drink, and I can't get another drink. So there we go. Right. So it's time. Would I ever do celebrity grams? I'm not planning on doing a celebrity gram for the moment. Right. Right. What's my thoughts on Kenneth Williams? I don't have any thoughts on Kenneth Williams. There you go. My answer to that. I don't know anything about Kenneth Williams. I'm not really interested. I'm not that interested. Right. Anyway, you've got shouting in the background, so there we go. Right. Cult television has to go and make tea. Noodle Pip. Well, go and make your tea, Cult Television. I can't imagine you making tea. I think you're more likely to go and make yourself a Negroni, mate. And I use that horrible word just to annoy you. Yes, he's going to make a Negroni. We all know that. Have I ever baked a cake? I have, but I'm not very good at it. That's not really my style.
We're not bad.
I'm more into making a curry. I wish I could make a curry because that's what I really love to have right now. I'd love a curry or a stir fry. I'd love something a bit more exotic than the food here. The food here is a bit bland, to be honest, for my liking. I like spice. I'm not into things that are just bland. I'd love a bit of spice, a bit of variety, and I love a bit of sauce. I love a spicy sauce. It would be wonderful, but I haven't got that. Right, John Major made a curry. Yes, he did have an affair with Edwina Curry. Yes, you're correct. Right, you only like bland things due to your migraines. Okay. Grow some spicy peppers in your garden. Well, no, it's just unfortunate that nobody else will eat the things. Tim Curry is a good actor. Well, I don't know Tim Curry as an actor, but there we are. Anyway, right. We've done 3 hours and 20 minutes. I think it is probably time to say enough is enough. Thank you very much for your patience and joining in. And no, I haven't watched this Adolescence. Right. No, I'm going to say thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Good night and good gardening to you all. Take care. I'm going to bed. I've had enough because I'm absolutely worn out by all of this. It's time to say good night. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye. Have a lovely evening. Good night and good gardening. And thank you ever so much for joining in. Bye-bye.